thank you all again for joining us, and let's get started. Let me introduce you to our honoree today. So, welcome, Jane. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
So Jane has worked in the financial services industry since 1982 as Senior Vice President and Financial Advisor in the Tucson office of Morgan Stanley. Jane leads a team providing investment services and long-term planning solutions for her clients. Jane's a strong advocate for promoting diversity in the financial services industry and beyond. In addition to being chair of Morgan Stanley's Wealth Management National Diversity Council, she's been president of the Association of Latino Professionals for America, Tucson Professional Chapter, for almost 10 years. And among Jane's many accolades is that she was recently named to the Makers Class of 2016. You'll have to explain that to us. It's an honor bestowed on Morgan Stanley women who have served as innovators, groundbreakers, and advocates. And Jane holds both an MBA and BA and MBA, 2 degrees from the University of Arizona. A proud alumna, she also serves on the advisory board for the Norton School of the Family and Consumer Sciences here at the U of A. So please join me in welcoming Jane, our cat in the corner office. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Melinda. It's my pleasure and honor.
Well, we have a lot of questions and about an hour to review your history, your successes, and answer questions from our viewers. So let me start with the first question, which is just tell us a little bit about your career at Morgan Stanley and what career path got you to where you are today.
Well, thank you. I started in 1982, before which I had just graduated with my MBA from the U of A. Started as a secretary and receptionist at a small regional firm. It was out of Denver at the time, and I was working here in Tucson. Didn't know anything about anything. Worked for my dad's stockbroker, answering phones, writing letters. I wasn't even very good at typing, but I had recently received my MBA from the U of A. Worked with his clients, answered phones, talked to clients, really worked hard, worked my way up. And within a few years, I became a vice president of investments after I got all my licensing, my Series 7, my Series 65, and I became a financial advisor.
Wow. So what was it that interested you about the field?
It was not something I had thought about my whole life. I didn't, start out as a small child and decide I was going to be a financial advisor. I didn't even know what a financial advisor was. I always thought I was going to be a teacher. My undergraduate degree was in secondary ed. At the time, I did my student teaching at CDO, did a great program here at the U of A in the College of Education where we're sitting today. It was fabulous, but I realized that I looked like I was about 12, and I didn't have any credibility as a teacher, and I thought, well, this isn't going to work too well. So I came back and got my MBA, married my high school sweetheart, and my dad's stockbroker said, kid, come and join me. We'll see where it goes. I'm from Nogales, and he really wanted to get into the Nogales market, and he knew that I could provide that entry into that niche market. So he solicited me to come and join him as his junior partner after getting all my licensing.
That's great. That's wonderful.
It was a lot of fun.
So you made a conscious decision to stay in Tucson and build your career here. And how important has it been to you to be from the community in building your financial services business?
It's massively important, and I think in Tucson one of the problems we have is most of our students that graduate leave, and they're encouraged to leave so they can make a good living and they can learn about industry and pursue their career goals. That was never an option for me. I never was going to leave. I mean, I was born in Tucson and raised in Nogales. Tucson was about as far as I wanted to go. I was terrified, and so it was very natural for me to stay in Tucson. I just recently did, for the Makers Award, I did a video and we were talking about it, and they said, how did you get to Wall Street? I said, I didn't get to Wall Street. I work on Main Street. I work in Southern Arizona, and I always have. What I've been able to do is bring Wall Street to Main Street, to Tucson, to Nogales, and to the people there. But the goal is that I look like, that I talk like, that I speak the same language and I come from the same culture as my clients and the people locally here. That's the key. So if I picked up and moved to New York or somewhere else, it would be very difficult. The importance is to be of the community, from the community, understand the community, and speak the same language.
So I know financial services is very different from education, but it sounds like there are things you did well as an educator that you're still doing
Yes.
in this field.
Yes.
There are some some skills that you use.
Yes. The education was actually fabulous because I do a lot of seminars today. My belief is that I need to educate my clients as to what the choices are and go over the pros and the cons, explain everything in detail. So I give my seminars and I explain benefits and drawbacks and I talk about the whole path. And a lot of that is teaching. That's where the education came from. I enjoy explaining things as opposed to selling things to my clients.
That's great. Do you recall the moment when you decided this is what you wanted to do? When you were working for your father? I mean, what was it? At what moment did you say, yeah, this is where I want to be?
And I think it was after I had already started. So I graduated from college with my secondary ed, and I said, that's really not what I want to do. So I took my first year of MBA, and I said, oh my God, this is so hard. This is maybe not what I want to do either. So I went home to work in Nogales for my dad's in the family for a full year. And that was enough to learn, you know what, I don't want to do that. I don't really want to live in Nogales. There were way too many chiefs and not enough little Indians running around. And so I said, okay, I can't do that. I need to help and I need to gain expertise. So I came back and I finished my MBA and I said, this is what I want to do. In the MBA program, it wasn't even called Eller then, I learned a lot and we did a lot of teamwork and putting together proposals and doing the full analysis. And I used those things that I learned there in my everyday work as being a financial advisor. It seems like it's perfect, but it was not the path, it was not the plan, but it sure melded together and it's been wonderful.
So it sounds like it's okay to not know exactly what you want to do when you graduate.
Yes.
I mean, there are a lot of students, I think, who may not know exactly what the next step is, and you're here to say it's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't know what you want to be until you're actually trying. And so I like to think of things as you have a big long list and your goal is to check things off the list. I didn't like that. That doesn't fit me. Maybe this, but your goal is to go down the list and find out what isn't working. But you're not going to know unless you try. And the first year or so, working for my dad's stockbroker, who was not an easy person to work for, I learned a lot about what not to do in the future for clients, how not to treat people, staff and clients. I learned a lot, and I think it was hard work. It was tough. It was a whole different language. I wasn't really aware of it. And so that learning curve was very steep. Getting all the licensing was very tough. But there was an aha moment saying, you know what, I'm good at this. I'm really good, and my clients need me, and this is going to work out just wonderfully.
Oh, that's great. That's wonderful. Well, tell us a little bit, I'm going to change course a little bit, taking you way back to your time at the U of A. Do you remember what your career goal was when you came to the university?
It was to be a teacher. Well, originally I started, and I really wanted to be a child psychologist. Having grown up on the border and having a background of being a Mexican-American and a full American, blonde, not blonde, but light hair, light eyes, and the clashing of the two cultures, and growing up in a community that was really just split by a line, by a border. It was really hard to navigate those two, and so I thought that was my goal, is that I wanted to be a child psychologist. And then I thought, after I found out exactly how much education that was going to require and what the end result was going to be, I said, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. So being a teacher, I could graduate in 4 years, I could have a trade, I could go out and get a job, and I figured that made a lot of sense. Have that as my background, and then if I needed to do something different, that would be wonderful. So I started, and I finished in 4 years. I decided I really wanted to marry my high school sweetheart, and then I said, okay, we're going to figure this out. And my dad offered and said, if you'd like to go and get your master's, I'm willing to pay for that. And I said, awesome, that's great, because I looked like I was 12. And I was able to do that, and it was wonderful.
That's great. That's great. What brought you to the University of Arizona?
There was never a choice.
Is that right?
My parents both graduated from the U of A. I think the first words out of my mouth were beat Tempe. I was a cheerleader for Nogales High School, and one of the times I was doing a cheer, and what are we going to do tonight? Beat Tempe. Oh, no, beat Douglas. I'm sorry. But it was really inbred in me. We came to a lot of football games. We were on campus a lot. My parents were both presidents of their houses. on campus, very involved. It was always a part of us. And it was wonderful because having grown up in Nogales, Tucson was far enough away, but not so that it was scary. So it was wonderful. There was never a choice.
That's great. Do you have any advice for picking a major?
I think what you need to do is be practical. I think you need to look at things and say, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What do they pay? How much is it going to cost me? How long is it going to take? So if you are interested in being a teacher, that's great, but understand how much it's going to cost to get a 4 years of education, and then how much you're going to make and how long it's going to take to pay back that loan. If you want to be a doctor, you want to look at the different fields and you want to figure out how much it's going to cost you over so many years and then what your payback is going to look like. I had a client and she was finishing up becoming a full MD at the age of 42. And we were talking about all these things and I said, okay, so do you realize that you're going to have to work X many years? Plus she had a daughter and was going to put her through college, and you're going to have so much debt and you've got this mortgage, and it's going to take you a very, very, very long period of time to be able to pay back this debt. I think you have to go in with your eyes wide open. That's why I'm such an advocate of financial literacy, because I don't think that people are being practical about how much college costs, about what the debt looks like, and then about how they can earn different amounts of salaries and to pay back that debt. I think that's a conscious decision. It's not all about the money. It's about what you're good at and what you're passionate about and how hard, what the work looks like. For women, I usually put it on a T-chart and say, okay, benefits and drawbacks. That's why I wanted to be a teacher. You work when the kids work. You're off on the weekends. You're off on the summer when they are. You don't have to work at night. You don't have to work on the weekends. It was perfect to be a mom. So you figure out what you want to do first, and then you figure out the career that works with that. But oh, by the way, add in the amount of money that you can possibly make too, and the amount of debt that you're going to accumulate.
Whew, that's great advice. Thank you. So what about your experience at the U of A? Did you have a good undergraduate experience? Was it anything that stands out?
It was a great undergrad experience. I probably had too much fun. We had a lot of friends there. There's a huge amount of people that come from Nogales that go to the U of A. We had a lot of friends. We had a lot of parties. It was a great time. The fact that I finished in 4 years and did pretty well was great. It was pretty hard for me to get into graduate school, though, and that was tough. But I did it and graduated in 2 full years there. So it was worthwhile.
That's great. And you certainly have maintained that connection.
Yeah.
Right? So that's awesome.
Yes. Being a Wildcat alum is one of the highlights of my life, and it's very important to me.
Well, we love that. Thank you very much. So let's move a little bit to your career. So do you have any examples of early leadership lessons that you learned as you were launching your career?
I don't know if everyone is aware, but being in the financial services industry, it's a very tough business. It's totally entrepreneurial. It's totally commission-based. There is no salary. So you only eat what you kill. You have to find your own clients. It's all based on commissions. So it's very tough. The result is it's a boys' club. The average financial advisor today is 58 years old, white, and male. There are very few females. And in 1982, there were 0. The good thing is I'd go to a meeting and the women's bathroom was always empty. There was never a line, ever. There were very few and far between, and also minorities. The numbers depend upon a lot of different things, but anywhere from 15 to 30% female. The general population is almost 51% female. The women are going to end up with all the money, so the ratios are still off, even at this time. And for minorities, the ratios are really, really bad. African American is maybe 10%. Latino is less than 5% financial advisors.
And those are current statistics?
Current statistics.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I work with the zoo, and I was talking to a zookeeper, and she said when she started in 1982, very few zookeepers were women. But now, 30 years later, the ratio is there are more women zookeepers than men, and her idea is because women are very good at caring for animals. And I said, I had the same thoughts back in 1982, it was less than 10%, but we've only gotten to 15%, so we haven't made that huge increase, and we're not being very successful.
So the opportunity is ripe currently for young people, women or people of color that want to move into this industry. There is opportunity?
Absolutely. And when I go and talk to students at Eller or at Norton, even into the elementary and high school level, I say, we're looking for women. We're looking for minorities. I thought in 1982, now is the time, a Mexican-American with an MBA, local, this is my time. I was, 25 years too early. Now here we are in 2016, and diversity is an enormous initiative in the financial services industry. We desperately need women and people of color and minorities of all kinds. And yes, there is a huge demand, especially if you look at the demographics and where is the money going. The money's going to end up in the hands of the women. It's going to end up the browning of America. And the wealth is spreading. So we, as financial advisors, need to look like our clients, and we need to look like the communities we serve. We need to speak the same language. We need to understand the culture. And we're missing that. So huge opportunity.
So if someone today wanted to get into the field, and you were fortunate that you also had family that helped you grow and build your career, how does one find that opportunity today? If you don't have a family member.
Right. That's the million-dollar question. And it's incredibly difficult. The success ratio for trainees in wirehouses, big financial firms, is about 10% after about 5 years, because it's a tough business. You have to have what I tell young people who want to get into the industry is I say, you probably need to bring in $1 million of new assets from clients every single month for a minimum of 5 years, if not throughout your whole career. That's really difficult. And who, in their right mind, is going to give a 25-year-old $1 million, all the money they've ever accumulated over their lifetime? So you can see where the problem is. And so at our firms, what we're looking at is how do we bring on these young people and make them successful? We need to recruit, we need to retain, and we need to train these individuals so that they will succeed in the future. And what the thought is to make it a longer runway. So you don't want to give them a year or 2 years or 5 years, because the majority will fail. You need a longer runway, more training, and my thought is, and my argument is that you put them on teams. So you bring them in, even though I had an MBA, I started as a receptionist and a CSA, a client service associate, in essence a secretary, even though I had the education. Why? Because then I learned how to talk to clients. I learned what the language and how to use the computer, what they needed, how to answer questions or concerns, how to explain what was going on. And over that time frame, I really learned from the inside, because you have to train that. Nobody walks in. So it's very tough, and it can't be done instantaneously. It's very difficult. And that's one of our problems.
So do you like seeing individuals that perhaps have had some other career experience before they move into the financial services business?
Yes, there's numerous different ways to come into the industry. One is to come in as a second or third career. We're doing a lot of recruitment for women coming back from maternity leave who want to re-enter the workplace. That's a national organization that we're working with. We like MBAs. We like team members. We like people who are willing to work their way up and understand that it's a long path. Because if you look in salary surveys, financial advisors get paid a lot of money. In fact, one of the top paying jobs there is. But you don't start out at that end. It's kind of like a startup, if you will. Hard work, no pay, work hard, and then the rewards are enormous. So second careers are very important. Also somebody who's willing to work on a team. I argue that we want people that are liberal arts majors as opposed to engineers. We want people who can talk to people who understand, psychology majors, teachers, a lot of different people who are able to service and help clients and listen. I also argue that women are better than men because we tend to listen instead of sell and tell. We're listening.
That's great. Well, that's great. So actually, for the Alumni Career Lab, this is great advice. So people that want to find out about these careers possibly get involved with the Alumni Career Lab.
Yes.
So
and it's key. And so when I talk to Eller graduates, another thing that is a really good idea is a lot of them are incredibly successful, and they're going off to New York. Mm-hmm. And they're getting internships and they're getting first jobs in New York on Wall Street. They're becoming in the capital markets. They're raising money. They're doing analysis and they're getting these fabulous jobs. And I said, that's wonderful. Do that for 5 years. Then come back to Tucson, have your resume, have your full understanding, and then become a financial advisor where you work with retail clients like I do.
Wow, great advice. So what's been some of the best career advice you ever received?
The best piece of advice was from my mom, and it was, don't sweat the small stuff. Always keep the big picture in mind. It's really important as a mom and as a financial advisor. There's no way I get everything done. So sometimes if the house isn't clean, that's the way it is. Sometimes if I haven't finished everything and there's still piles on my desk, that's okay. You have to go for the big things first, the toughest, the hardest, the big elephants that you're working on. You have to go for those first. Always deal with those first. And then let everything else settle down and do what you can. You can't do everything. You just can't.
Wow. That's good advice regardless of your career, right? That's excellent. So you not only talk the talk, you walk the walk, I know. You happen to have someone you work with that you're mentoring today for a career in financial services.
Yes. I have brought on my daughter as my junior partner, and she took a similar career path. She had a liberal arts undergraduate degree. She moved to California. She didn't know what she wanted to do. It's very similar to when I graduated. She went and lived with a friend from Tucson who was working at Google, and she and her friend Ashley were living in Silicon Valley. And it was tough. It was expensive. It was hard to get a job. There was no connections. There was nobody who can say, oh, can you give my daughter a job? So she had it tough, and she started as a CSA with Morgan Stanley in San Jose. She worked for 2 years as an assistant, a junior assistant. Then my manager recruited her here to be a WAA, which is a Wealth Advisory Associate, so she prepares financial plans. And about 1.5 years ago, she came and joined my team, and so now she's my junior partner.
That is awesome. And there was a very nice article in Wall Street Journal about you both, which is it's a fairly unusual model across the country, as I understand it.
It was for Mother's Day last year.
That's great.
And it was a wonderful article, and they were highlighting a mother-daughter team. So we were different because females, we're different because we're Latinas, and working together on a team, that's very different. But yes, so Morgan Stanley likes to highlight us as the team of the future.
Well, that's awesome. And I've seen you both at work, and you are a great team for sure. I think we have a question coming in. Okay, here's a great question from Christopher, class of 2018. What courses should an Eller MBA student focus on to prepare for a career at Morgan Stanley?
Great question. Thank you very much for that. I don't know exactly what the career, what the choices of courses are. I took investments, which was wonderful. You need to work on your teamwork and putting together proposals and doing full analysis. When I write proposals every day, and I present them, and all of that was learned. The basics were really learned in Eller. It wasn't Eller then, but and I learned how to do the full analysis. You can't just look at the numbers. You have to look at all the details. And I encourage you to take not only finance and accounting, but take other courses as well. Communications, marketing, virtually everything in my industry, if you're going to be a financial advisor, is marketing and sales. Really key things that you should concentrate on. And so even if you're in Eller, you should look at some of the courses that are being offered in the Lundgren Retailing Center too. They offer some great courses that you can look at.
That's great. Okay, well, our questions are starting to come in, so thank you. Those of you that are asking questions, keep them coming. Here's another one. How does someone in school learn relationship management and sales skills?
That's a wonderful question, and if everybody could learn that, then everybody would be so much better off. I think while you're in college, early on, freshman, sophomore year, you want to apply for and take internships. You want to be out in the real world. It's going to make your resume look better, but it also, real world experience is what we're looking for. You have to network while you're in college. You have to join different organizations. You have to go out into the real world and connect with people. It's about listening. You can learn. We didn't have any of those courses available. I did a lot of Stephen Covey training and sales training through my work as a financial advisor. There was a lot of courses on that. Franklin was also huge and wonderful in a lot of training. But it involves listening and talking with people. I think if you get on, there are jobs that are call centers, which are really boring and hard, but they're fabulous in teaching you how to communicate with people on the phone. And that's what we do. When I first got hired in 1982, one of the things that I had done that they liked was that I was in collections. And they thought that was wonderful, that I could actually collect money on the phone in Spanish and in English. I'll tell you, it was not all that great of a job, but it looked good on my resume. So you go out, you volunteer, you take internships, and you do everything you can, and you start practicing.
Great, great advice. So given that you've got a passion around diversity, could you talk a bit about what you've done in your career to promote diversity for the industry?
Right. So for the industry, that's where Alpha comes in. It used to be the Association of Latino Professionals in Finance and Accounting, and then we broadened up. We now have over 100,000 members, professional and student. Student chapters are all over the nation, including here at the U of A. So what I do is I try and mentor. We've hired some interns from Alpha. I come down and speak to them at the U of A. We have a national convention. This year it's in Dallas. Last year it was in New York. One year it was in Phoenix. A couple of years it's been in Orlando. I go and I participate. I do workshops. I talk to students about what it looks like to be a professional, but also a Latino, and how you can use the two together. And the professionalism is really, really important in our business. So mentoring, some sponsorships. We recently were able to work with a young man who received an internship and will be working, he's leaving very soon, in New York as an intern for Morgan Stanley. I've hired interns pretty much my entire career, and usually I get them from the U of A campus, and oftentimes it's from Alpha.
That's great. So tell us a bit more about the Makers Award that you got. What does that mean to be a maker?
Makers is a national organization, not just for Morgan Stanley. It's sponsored by AOL and PBS. And so to be a maker, they started 3 years ago, and they've had 2 national conventions. The last one was in LA. I went to that about 2 months ago. And they're promoting female in the workplace. One of their big things is equal pay. They had all kinds of women. It was fabulous. It was so interesting to get inspired by national leaders. Some of them were actresses, some of them were astronauts, some of them were a firefighter out of New York City. And to get, one of them was Kathy Womack, the soccer player, I think that was her name. And she has a new Barbie doll after her, and she's going around and promoting equal pay for equal work. There are a lot of women from different kinds of industries. We all got together. We're very energized. Sheryl Sandberg of Facebook was there, talked a lot about Facebook and what they're doing for women. It was awesome. So we did that, and then we did a video for each of us, and then there were 16 of us that were named for Morgan Stanley Makers, and we had a big celebration in New York about 2 months ago.
Wow!
And
congratulations.
it was incredible. It was so awesome. I felt very honored and respected and promoted. So the goal of Morgan Stanley is to show other women what a female financial advisor looks like, because we're kind of rare and in between. And so the idea is that you have to see it to want to be it. And so by promoting us and showing that what our careers look like and the different paths, that we can inspire young women to come and join Morgan Stanley and be involved in the financial services arena.
Wow, what an honor. Congratulations. That sounds like an amazing experience.
It was a lot of fun.
I think we have another question, so get ready. This one comes from Angelina. So how did increasing financial literacy become a passion of yours, and what work do you do in that area?
Financial literacy, well, again, if you look back and you say, okay, my undergraduate degree was education, so I love teaching people about things. So education is huge. What is my expertise now is finances. So teaching personal finance is a huge passion. And I've worked with Norton School and TCAI, Take Charge America Institute, which is in the Norton School. I was on the board. You got me on the board. You were the one that recruited me. And we should talk about recruiting, mentoring, and sponsoring. Yeah. But I got involved there and teaching financial literacy. So the U of A, if you don't know it, is hugely involved in teaching financial literacy for K through 12, and then also at the college level. And teaching about how to rent an apartment, how to get insurance, how to buy a car, how to make a financial plan, how to look at getting out of debt. The Take Charge Cats, which were the CreditWise Cats, which you started along with Wansi Skomani, do what I do. I go around and give financial seminars, but the CreditWise Cats, the Take Charge Cats, do that all over town. They do it for middle school and high school and the dorms and the frats, and they have a financial competition. And I've been a huge supporter of that. I was on the board and I love that. I've also set up a foundation, and we're working on teaching financial literacy and working especially with Latinos, because the two don't usually mix, and it's sad, and we need to work on that.
That's great. Well, that is a passion we share. Financial literacy is incredibly important to young adults as well, especially as they move into their careers. So you've been in the financial services industry since the 80s. How has it changed? What would you say about what it looks like today versus 1980?
It's more complicated, but it's faster. So I think that the same dynamics exist, but things change more rapidly because of social media and the 24/7 news and all of the different things that are going on. So we're condensing movement in a very short period of time. The trading is more intense, the movements are more intense, but it's really basically the same old, same old. And if I can convince and show and educate my clients that if you look long term, as opposed to short term and the gyrations and the volatility in the market, and you can hold on for long term, if you're investing money and it's for long term, then you shouldn't pay attention to the ups and downs, and that shouldn't be allowed to make you seasick. You've got to look long term. And so my job really is to help people invest their money today for their future retirement, or educating their kids, or passing it on to their the next gens. I help them do a plan, but I help hold their hands and explain that this volatility is normal, what's going on. So I explain what the market's doing, why it's doing it, look at long-term charts. We do the graphs, we run the financial analysis. Selena spends all day running financial analysis and showing, okay, if this is the volatility and these are the expected returns, these are what your goals and objectives are, and this is how we're going to hit that. So I do the plan to get to the end result. But it's hard, it's scary. I'm the interpreter, if you will, of what the financial market is doing and how it applies to you as an individual, and how it will provide you with what you want, your goals and objectives in the long term.
So what you do perhaps hasn't changed as much as the environment around what you do, which has changed so dramatically.
But it hasn't really. Honestly, things are the same. So in the 80s, if you'll remember, interest rates were really high, inflation was really high. But the investments were similar, stocks, bonds, cash, other kinds of real estate investments. They're very similar. You had to look at what was going on. The process is the same. You understand what is happening, you understand what the current environment is, you understand what the long-term projections are, what history is giving you over the very long term, and then you deal with it. So today, interest rates are nothing. Inflation is less than 2%. Growth in the U.S. industries is not high. GDP is not high. So how do we invest? I talk to clients and adjust their investments to deal with what the current market looks like.
So these clients, these are relationships that sometimes last 40 years, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So how do you maintain, aside from managing their money, how do you maintain those long-term relationships? They have to last a lifetime.
Yeah, well, and several lifetimes.
Yes.
So in all honesty, being a financial advisor and wanting to be a psychologist and wanting to be a teacher, all of that was perfect for what I do today. It's not so much, there are machines, there are programs to do the calculations. What is hard to teach is how to deal with clients, how to be there for them, how to discuss. I just received an email today, which was Morgan Stanley sent out a video crew to talk to me and my family and my team about how we help transition clients. And the whole purpose of it was to talk about, we take clients from when they're working and they're accumulating wealth to get them to the point where they're going to retire. And then what does that look like? Where does the money come from next? And then how enjoying retirement and traveling and doing everything you ever wanted to. And then what's the next step? Okay, maybe it's slowing down. Maybe it's moving into a retirement home. What does that look like? And talking them through that entire journey, that's what I do. And I help them, and I help their children, and I may help their parents, and I may help and their caregivers. We're doing a seminar on dementia on the 26th in our office because that's a big concern. And so I help the journey of how that might look like in the next 6 months, 12 months, 5 years, 20 years, and have those discussions with clients. Real life discussions about what's happened in my family, with my clients. I have hundreds of clients. I have hundreds of experiences. And that's my job, is to explain what that could look like and how to deal with that.
Wow. Sounds like far more than just being a financial services advisor. It sounds like a life coach, financial services all rolled into one. I think we have another question. Here we have from Susan. Do you have any advice around how to be a great boss and leader?
Oh boy, I'm not the best. Let me tell you, it's tough. I think one of the keys is listening and taking advice and knowing what your weaknesses are and knowing what your strengths are and being coachable. All along my career, I have gone to professional business coaches. I've gone to training, I've gone to team training, I've gone to sales training, and I've listened. One of the things that I've been asked is, why am I so different than everyone else? And I think it's because I listen to others who know more about different things. So I attend courses on how to be a leader, how to coach a team. And some of the takeaways are, you look at your team. We have 4 people right now on our team. What are their strengths and their weaknesses? We do the DISC assessments. Okay, who likes what? Who likes to do what? Let's discuss the job descriptions. Okay, let's put together what you want to do, what I want to do, and let's get feedback. We have our daily meetings every morning. We have our weekly progress reports. We have a meeting where we discuss and we rate each other. We rate ourselves and we rate each other on how we're going towards our goals. We look at our goals. We have things in writing, and we chart how we're doing according to those goals. So it's a long process, but you can't do it on your own. So here I am, the lucky one, that are getting all these awards and accolades and videos, but it's my team who does the work, and I respect them, and I honor them, and I appreciate them, but you have to work together. And I think where I'm different than a lot of financial advisors and a lot of maybe males in the business world is it's not about ego. I know what I'm not good at. I know Luis on my team is fabulous in doing the number crunching. I know Michelle is the person on the detail end of it and figuring out where money is supposed to go and all the paperwork. I know that those are not my strengths. So it's not about me knowing everything. I know that I don't know. But being able to work with and appreciating my staff and the people who work for me, in our back office and asking the right questions and not assuming or not trying to convince somebody that I know everything.
So do you think women lead differently?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that that's what Makers was about too. We lead differently, we express ourselves differently. When we're angry, we talk differently. If we have a concern, we don't yell and scream. We say, I have a problem. And if you don't hear me, that's a problem. And women are very different. And I think that honestly, we lead really well. And I think that we service clients really well because we listen and we empathize and we are compassionate and we understand and we're able to listen to a client that says, oh, my mom needs this, and I can feel that and understand it, and so can my staff, and so we can help solve problems. As opposed to, I want you to do what I tell you to do. That's not what it's about. I want to help you get to where you want to go.
That's great. So if I were to hand you a stack of resumes for some of our graduating seniors and say, you can go through here and evaluate, pull out some of those people that you'd want to interview for an internship or a job, what would you be looking for?
When we do our Alpha Convention every year, I've been going for almost 10 years, and we have a career fair, and we bring in the top recruiters for Morgan Stanley. And these career fairs, I think the one in New York, there were 3,500 students that came through.
Wow.
And they want financial services, they want accounting, and so there are stacks and stacks of resume, and I'm there all day long just talking and talking and talking to students. What does this look like? So what they do for a living, those recruiters, they'll look at the resume. And so yes, they're looking at GPAs. Yes, they're looking at experience. They want to see what's on your resume. They want you have had real life experience. They like people who have had second careers or something that attracts them. But again, if you go back to what I said earlier on, if you're just starting out and you know that you need to bring in $1 million of new money every single month for the rest of your life, how are you going to do that? What are you connected to? So professional athletes, Morgan Stanley has done this big push with professional athletes and entertainers. We call it the SEG, and it's the Sports and Entertainment Group. And we have a lot of retired professional athletes. And why? Because they have lots of money. They have no knowledge about money. They need help managing it. And so they're wonderful clients. But are you connected to that? What are you connected to? So when I was recruited back in 1982, I was connected to Nogales. Nogales was totally underserved. But they need my financial advisor. He needed somebody who could relate to that, who was a part of that community. It was a perfect match. So we're looking for people who are going to hit underserved communities, but that have wealth and that have need and that are looking for help. And so we're looking on a resume not only for what you're doing in school, but all your extracurricular, your previous job experience, and where you come from and maybe how you're different.
I can't help but think as I sit here and listen to you that being authentic seems like it would be really critical. That your connections are just a result of who you are as a person. That you need to really know yourself too.
Well, and then that's very difficult. So in this last video that was done, one of the questions was, what was the worst piece of advice that you ever gotten?
Oh, that's a good one.
And what I said was, when we lived in Colorado Springs for 5 years, and my husband was building swimming pools in Colorado Springs, and so I transferred up there and I worked for a senior financial advisor, and one of his pieces of advice were, don't let your home life and your real self mix with your business. I was driving in a Isuzu or something, and he said, you need to go out and you need to lease a Mercedes, and you need to, do all these things. Join the country club and blah, 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 blah. And this is who you need to portray yourself as, and don't be who you really are. That was the worst piece of advice ever, 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 ever. I am who I am. And that's, being from Nogales, being from Southern Arizona, being a very devout Roman Catholic, being very family-oriented, being a Latina, and a big advocate of financial literacy, especially for minorities. That's who I am, and that's where the passion comes from, and that's what makes me successful.
Yeah.
So if you pretend to be somebody else, that doesn't work. You have to be authentic, and you have to be passionate about who you are and how you want to help people.
Well, that comes through. That's great. I think we have another question coming up. Let's see. Here's one from a current U of A student, Ryan. Do you have any advice for when to begin investing, and what are the first steps?
Great question.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I think I was a successful financial advisor is I started investing really young, way before I had any clue as to what I was doing. My grandparents set up an account. My dad wanted me to start taking it over. I remember my first appointment with my financial advisor. I was terrified. Interest rates were really high, like 13%. I got a CD. It was not what you would call investing, but at the time it was fabulous. It's never too early to start. You have to start early, and you have to start often. So you want to set up an account. You want to start putting money in gradually. So if you're working, I really encourage you to be involved in your 401k and set up a monthly deposit on day one. But you can never let your investing suck out all your money because then you don't have a life. And then you'll hate investing because it's taken all your life. So you don't want your current standard of living to be such that you're negative or that you're feeling angry towards the investing, because a lot of people will do that too, and then they'll get mad and they'll say, oh, the stock market went down, I lost money, I'm not having any fun, I'm never going to do that again. That's not what you want to do. You want to begin where it doesn't hurt, but then increase it annually. And you want to be diversified, and right now you want to look global. Global is where you want to invest. You want to invest all around the world. The U.S., but all around the world. You want to be very diversified, and you want to put money in all the time. Because then if the market goes down, great, you're buying at lower prices, and you're doing it consistently over a long period of time.
So I can imagine someone might be thinking, oh, I have so little to invest at this point, I'm going to start, but I wouldn't really need the services of a financial advisor at this point. I mean, at what point does someone with their investments need to come to someone like you?
Whenever they think that they need. So you can get some advice online. You can get some advice by talking to places like Fidelity or Vanguard or whomever. But I caution, you want to go, I used to teach PIMA, non-credit community college courses, and give advice that way. I think that's a really wise idea. You want to ask questions, you want to read books, you want to talk to people, you want to gain as much information, and you also just want to learn how to do it. And sometimes you're going to fail. And know that markets go up and they go down, and it's absolutely no fun when they go down, but that's part of it. And you have to learn, and you want to learn early, and you want to learn on your own money. And you want to seek advice. If you're working and you have a 401k, there is a 401k advisor that you can talk to. And I encourage you to do that and get professional advice, especially if it doesn't cost too much. My average cost is about 1%. I'm earning about less than 0.5% on the assets that I service, but my professional advice is about 1%. And so 1% is worthwhile. If you think about selling a house, it's going to cost you 6%. Mm-hmm. A lot of things are going to cost you more than 1%. So you want to keep your fees low, but you want to get experience, you want to get expertise, you want to get advice. And you want to start early.
That's great. Excellent. So any more questions? Keep those questions coming. We've got a few minutes left. I think we've got about five or 6 minutes left. So let me ask about advice you might have for a student that's graduating now. We've got commencement happening next week, about 6,000 students that are going to be moving on to start their post-collegiate lives. What advice would you have for them?
Everything matters. Everything you do matters. You have to be careful. You have to make conscious decisions about who you are and where you want to go and who you want to be. You want to be authentic. You want to be realistic. You want to know what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. When I go and talk to especially young women and especially young Latinas, I say the people you choose to have in your life are really, really important. That's probably going to be your biggest decision you're going to make. So who you marry matters, or who you choose to partner with matters, because that's going to be for the rest of your life. That's a really important thing. When you choose a career, when you choose a job, you probably aren't going to like it on day one. You may not like it for the first few years, but it's work. And that's what work is. It's hard. And the better you are at it and the harder you work at it and the success is building up, you have to start at the bottom but work your way up. If you keep switching jobs, you're going to be constantly at the bottom. That makes life really tough. If you start at the bottom and you work your way up, you're going to like it more and more and more as you get into it more, as you earn more money, as you're better at it, and then you're breathing as opposed to being terrified every day of going to work. It's not easy. If it was easy, if my job was easy, everyone would be doing it.
Right.
But don't shy away from what's hard.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I like the piece of advice about not changing careers or jobs too quickly your first couple of years out of school, because it's not easy, right? I think we have another question coming in. Let's see. It's going to be up here in just a second, so I'm waiting for my transcriber. She's writing furiously, and here it comes. So, what are you most excited about for the future of financial services?
I think that the needs are growing. Our clientele are growing. Baby boomers are retiring. Next gens are coming in. The millennials are coming in. There are more of you all out there. And you're going to be a huge force in the workplace, and you're going to need us. You're not going to need a robo-advisor. You're going to need actual advice, and it's not just about the math. It's not just about the asset allocation. It's how to handle all these transitions in your life. So for me, it's exciting. It's wonderful. For having my daughter on the team, it's wonderful. I know that there's going to be a lot of work for us to do in the future. I wanted to give one other piece of advice. I think it's really important in your career to find a mentor and a sponsor. And I thank you, Melinda, for being not only my mentor, but my sponsor. You got me really involved in the Take Charge America, the TCAI Institute, and then also, which led to me being on the Norton School, and me being a very active and involved and caring alumni of the University of Arizona. And I thank you for that.
Wow,
You've helped me in my career, and you've helped me with all my relationship with the university.
Well, thank you. That was not scripted anywhere. No. I appreciate that. Certainly your commitment to the U of A has been noted and appreciated over and over again because you've made such significant contributions. So we really value you as an alum too, so thank you. I think we may have time for one more question. Jane, let's see. Oh, and this is a great question. So talk about mentoring and sponsorship. How does one find a mentor or a sponsor?
It's very difficult. You can find it by joining different organizations, especially in organizations that have students and working professionals, because those professionals are involved because they want to mentor, so they're willing and able. But you as a potential mentee have to show that you're interested, that you're hardworking, that you're coachable, that you're going to listen, that you're going to follow through. So if I have a mentor and I'm scheduled to talk to that that mentee every month, that mentee has to be in charge of making sure that the appointment is set up on my calendar. They have to make sure that they've given me an agenda of what we're going to speak at. I'm going to be holding them responsible, or it's not going to work. So you have to show your enthusiasm. I'll hire people. I don't necessarily need them to have all the perfect traits, but I need them to have the enthusiasm and the passion about working hard and about listening. I want to help them in their career. I want them to help me in my life. So it needs to be a relationship. You can't just be there taking. You also have to be giving, and it's a two-way stream.
So does that relationship just sort of happen naturally, or does a mentee actually come and say, would you be my mentor? Would you ask to be
You have to be a part of an organization that is allowing that to exist with willing people. So you can't be just someone on the street going up to some professional and saying, will you be my mentee, my mentor? I think you need to be involved in organizations such as the Alumni Association that provides that relationship and organization.
Well, thank you. That's a great shout out for the Alumni Association, because our Alumni Career Lab has a goal to make those connections. So I think actually we're about out of time, and you've been a terrific cat in the corner office today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
I guess it's fair to say we've known each other a long time. You have been a great friend to me. So thank you so much for joining us today as a cat in the corner office. And thank you, everyone watching and writing questions. We look forward to seeing you again for our next Cat in the Corner office. Bear down.
Thank you.